Welcome to Half 2-4. In this episode, Casemiro goes to Messi, and Bruno Fernandes becomes the main target of top clubs through a clause of £57 million. The shame of Chelsea, which will go down in history books, and an unprecedented pact on rest, why Cunha will no longer play in the Premier League. Phil Foden remains at the Etihad until 2030, and Raphinha chose the next club while Barcelona considers various options. All about this right now. Phil Foden remains in City until 2030. It would seem ordinary news about a contract extension with a leader. But wait, because there is a nuance here, which makes this deal much more interesting than just another piece of paper with a signature. Why did the citizens decide to cement the future of their diamond right now, when he is experiencing perhaps the most difficult period in his career? Let's figure it out. So, in fact, David Ornstein confirmed. An agreement in principle is reached 4 years, plus an extension option for one more season. That is, Phil can remain at the Etihad potentially until 2030 first year. Formalities are only a matter of time. But here is what's important to understand. This season for Foden, to put it mildly, is ambiguous. 7 goals and 3 assists in 26 Premier League matches. This is clearly not the level for which we wait from the former Player of the Year. Guardiola speaks about him warmly, but honestly, step by step, he will return. His dynamics are still there. That is, even the coach admits something went wrong. At the same time, City still gives him the status of untouchable, a mad salary, and closes the doors before Bayern and Barcelona. Market value of 160 million euros is only a figure on paper, because for City, Phil is the club's DNA. They believe that this slump is only a pause before a new rise. You know what I like in this news? Not the fact of signing itself, but that City did not fear a difficult season, did not sell, did not loan out, did not start looking for a replacement, believed and extended. Foden, 25 years, 21 titles with City, one club, everything his own. Such is a rarity now. And if he finds the former fire, and he will find it, I believe in this then until 2030, we will yet see the same Foden. A better one. Over £1.5 billion, 6 defeats in a row, and now the final chord. Chelsea at home is crushed by the half-reserve squad of Nottingham Forest, which is preparing for the final with City. Can you even believe this? 1 scored goal in 6 Premier League games. This is no longer just a crisis. This is an official death certificate of the BlueCo project in its current form. Let's figure out how a club that a year ago blew out PSG turned into a football corpse, which cannot beat even the bench of the Foresters. So, in fact, Chelsea lost 6 matches in a row in PL for the first time since 1993rd year. During this time, they conceded 14 goals and scored 1. And do you know what is scariest? Jamie Carragher is 100% right. He said for Sky Sports, "This is shocking, and it goes from the top." Today on the field are 5 or 6 truly first-class players, and they were beaten by the second team of Nottingham. Between the players, staff, and fans, there is no connection. And here I agree, the connection simply disappeared. But let's be honest. And where is that iron grip, which was under Enzo Maresca? Just recently, he held this bloated billion-dollar squad in his fist, and the team had at least some logic. And now everything simply fell apart. Think about it. Why was it necessary to fire Enzo Maresca? The man only asked for one, a high-quality center back to patch the holes. But instead of strengthening, the management decided that they are smarter than the coach. Or maybe City is to blame here. There were rumors Enzo Maresca should replace Guardiola in City when that one decides to leave. And in London, they just panicked. Whatever it was, this step became fatal. Without Enzo Maresca, this Chelsea looks like a car in which on the move the steering wheel was torn off. Even João Pedro, who in this season looks like the only bright spot, 15 goals without penalties, after the match looked absolutely lost. He said directly, "Everyone must look at themselves, me included. I feel sorry for the fans. I don't think it's about the coach. It's on the players to step up. And what about the new coach? Interim manager 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚𝗓𝗏 continues at press conferences to repeat mantras about the fact that the lads believe in themselves and are doing everything possible. But look at the table, 9th place. European Cups are waving the blue ones goodbye. The last victory was yet on the 2nd of March over Villa, and since that time, complete darkness. My opinion? This is payment for chaos. You can buy 40 top players, but you won't buy a backbone and cohesion in one transfer deadline. Chelsea now looks like a club which simply falls apart from the inside, and no amount of Bowley money heals this. If you kick out a coach who had a structure only because he demanded strengthening, get ready for shame from the reserves of Forest. For now, Chelsea is the most expensive catastrophe in football history. But it's okay. Now Mudryk will return on doping after rest, and then Premier League will exactly lie under the Blues. Free defender, and behind him lined up Liverpool, Tottenham, Juventus, Barcelona, and yet half of Europe. Matheus Senesi this summer becomes a free agent, and this is probably the hottest free transfer of the season. Let's get to the point. Matheus Senesi in Bournemouth from 2020 second year played 122 matches for the club, and the contract ends this summer. Not going to extend. That is the club which once paid for him about $16 million, simply lets him go into nowhere. Sad for Bournemouth, but great for all others. And here begins the most interesting. Representatives of Matheus Senesi already reached out to most clubs that claim European Cups, and the decision is expected by the end of the season. But free does not mean cheap. The player wants about £70,000 per week, twice more than the current salary, plus signing on fees to agents. Tottenham already seemingly agreed. Sky Germany even wrote about a preliminary agreement. But Mate Moretto appeared and says Liverpool entered the game seriously. New contacts are already expected. And why Liverpool? There is a personal factor here. Matheus Senesi played under the leadership of Arne Slot in Feyenoord, and exactly Richard Hughes, now the sports director of Liverpool, in his time organized his transfer to Bournemouth. That is, these people know each other and trust. This is not just interest, this is a personal story. 28-year-old Argentine left-footed center back, strong in duels, not bad in play with the ball. Not a superstar, but a reliable, experienced player. Exactly what is needed for a club with pretensions. Honestly, if Liverpool truly wants him, Tottenham is unlikely to be able to compete, especially if to consider that Tottenham now fights for survival. But also for Liverpool, there are questions. If they already signed 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚𝗓 and Konate, remains why yet another defender? Maybe exactly because Joe Gomez is about to leave. One way or another, this is a transfer for which it's worth to follow, because for a free player, there is rarely so much hype. Casemiro Inter Miami. Fabrizio Romano confirmed. Negotiations are going. The Brazilian is preparing to leave Manchester United as a free agent. And you know what is most interesting? This is probably the perfect end for all. First facts. Casemiro signed a contract with United in August 2022 for 4 years until 2026. Salary £350,000 per week. That is in the summer, all free agent for free. His decision to go, he announced yet in January. Carrick tried to calm the fans. From both sides, the decision is clear. Now Miami. According to data from Brazilian media, the club of Beckham already reached a principal agreement with Casemiro. Contract until December 2028 with an option for yet a year. And attention salary is twice bigger than the current one, plus bonuses and a share from the incomes of the club. That is, the man goes from United and earns more, settled in well. The agreement was supposedly reached during a recent trip to the USA, where Brazil played friendly matches against France and Croatia. Casemiro met with the leadership of Miami personally. This, I understand, combined pleasant with useful. But there is a nuance. Fans at the last match shouted, "1 more year." Cunha in social networks supported. Even Carrick admitted Casemiro of this season is brilliant, and to replace him will be very difficult. United goes to the Champions League and their best defensive midfielder packs suitcases for Florida. Here it is. Football irony in pure form. 2 years ago, Casemiro looked like a mistake for $70 million. Amorim did not want him. The club tried to sell. No one took, even with a discount. And then came Carrick, believed, and the Brazilian turned into one of the best PL players of this season. And now he goes, for free, to Miami, where he will play with, well, let's see, with whom there yet will be until 2028. United returns to the Champions League without its best midfielder. The task for Carrick for the summer to find a replacement for Casemiro, and this, believed, will be harder than it seems.
Of course it's not.
Eddie Howe goes nowhere. David Ornstein confirmed the coach receives support from the management and leads Newcastle into the next season. Officially. Decided. Period. But let's talk about what stands behind this news. Newcastle now 13th place in PL. 36 points, 10 victories and 12 defeats in 28 matches. For the club, which 2 years in a row reached the Champions League, this is painful. Very painful. What went wrong? Newcastle lost 25 points from winning positions this season, more than any other club in PL. A year ago, this indicator was opposite, only 7 lost points, the least in the league. That is, the team knows how to go ahead, but to hold the advantage cannot. And this is a systemic problem, not a coincidence. 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚 left to Liverpool. 23 goals in 32 matches of the last season. Not a single player of Newcastle this season, even to the top 10, reached. 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚 started not bad, 7 goals in the first 14 games, and then silence. 14 matches without a goal, miss a 1 goal in 14 games. This is not a replacement for 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚. This is a catastrophe of the attack. And yet Eddie Howe remains. The owners took into account the context. 58 matches per season, a terrible number of injuries, a failed summer transfer window where the club itself messed up with the situation around 𝗕𝗥𝗚𝗚 and did not have time to sign the necessary players until the beginning of the season. Plus, 76% of the fans in the voting supported Eddie Howe. This is not a trifle. I understand the decision. Eddie Howe is not just a coach, he is the architect of everything that Newcastle built over the last 4 years. 2 entries into the Champions League, the League Cup. This is not built in a year or two. But if next summer the club again fails the transfer window, no credit of trust already will save. Eddie Howe received a chance. Now, decisions are needed, not words. Raphinha decided he remains in Barcelona, period. But Blaugrana yet waits for proposals. And here the situation becomes a bit more interesting than it seems. First, about the player. In this season, the Brazilian missed almost 2 months because of injury, a tear of the biceps femoris in September. But after return, immediately found 4 goals, assists, and 1 more hat trick in February against Sevilla. In general, 19 goals and 8 assists in 31 matches for the season. Even an injured season, and he is top. Contract until 2028 year. Salary about €16,700,000 per year. The club signed him last year in the summer after the phenomenal previous season. And here begins the interesting in the new contract. A release clause is expected at the level of €80 million. This is not $1 billion as it was before. This is a real sum for big clubs. 3 clubs from Saudi Arabia are ready to pay. Barcelona officially listens. But Raphinha himself, no. Earlier, he already refused Al Hilal, which offered him sky-high money because the Saudi league for him is not an option. The situation is very simple. Raphinha wants to remain, and he is right. 29 years, top form contract until 2028. Why go anywhere? Barcelona listens to proposals. This is a standard position of a club with financial problems. If someone brings €100 million in cash, they will think. But for €80 million with a release clause to sell one of the best players of the world, this would be suicide. Saudi Arabia, let them look for someone else. Cunha will not play in the last 3 matches of United in Premier League. MU and the Football Federation of Brazil reached an agreement. The forward is resting. The World Cup is more important. And do you know what? This is probably one of the smartest decisions of this season. First facts. Cunha was signed to United last summer for £62.5 million from Wolverhampton. Contract until 2030 year. Salary about £180,000 per week. Big transfer, big expectations, and he justified them. 9 goals and 2 assists in PL for the season, while the player missed quite a lot of time because of injuries. But now the groin, he played against Liverpool, not being fully healthy, scored, by the way, but risked. And here, United and Brazil did the right thing, stopped. 3 matches left. A place in the Champions League is already there. Why break the player for the sake of matches with Sunderland and company? Even more so, the World Cup. Cunha competes for a place in the attack of the national team of Brazil, together with João Pedro and Richarlison. To come to the tournament unhealthy means to lose both the club and the national team for half a year ahead. Cunha of this season is that person without whom United looked completely different. Even 9 goals in the first season after the transition. With injuries, with a new coach, this is character. Let him rest. Let him heal. The World Cup is once in 4 years. And the Champions League with United won't go anywhere. They just entered there, and Cunha is needed there healthy. Right decision. Rare, smart behavior in modern football. Galatasaray wants to sign Bruno Fernandes. That same Bruno, who this season made 19 assists in Premier League and breaks the records of David Beckham. That same one, behind whom follows all of Europe. Galatasaray. Seriously. Okay. Listen further. Sky Sport DE confirmed the Turkish club truly is interested in Bruno Fernandes as the main target for the 10 position. Contacts with his entourage already were, and they want to resume the talks. But even the journalists themselves admit the chances they evaluate as unrealistic. Because United goes to the Champions League. And here we move to the essence. Bruno Fernandes this season, 19 assists and 8 goals in PL. He broke the club record of United for assists per season, which before this belonged to Beckham from 1999th, 2000th year. He created 98 moments, 40 more than any other player in Premier League. This is not just a good season. This is one of the best creative seasons in the history of the league. And exactly here begins the most interesting part. In the contract of Bruno Fernandes, there is a clause he can go to a club outside England for £57 million. And it is active exactly this summer. For top clubs of Europe, $57 million for a player of his level is not even a conversation. It is a discount. But here is the key. United held direct negotiations with Bruno Fernandes and gave to understand he is the central figure of the project. The club is trying to sign a new deal which annuls this clause. And the main argument, the Champions League. Bruno Fernandes spent only 19 matches in CL over 6 years in the club. He wants to change this. I still think Galatasaray is not that direction for Bruno Fernandes. Not on this stage. The Turkish league is a sunset, not a new chapter. But here is what really holds all in tension. Not Gala, but that same clause for £57 million and the fact that Bayern, PSG, or Real can call any day. Here, there is truly what to talk about. Galatasaray, no.